All right, Magic Round is finally here. We're ahead of round 9 for the NRL, and we're bringing you a brand new show at Insight Fantasy Sports on the Insight NRL show, and that is the Team List Tuesday episode, which is solely focused on talking about all of the ins and outs for all 8 games ahead of every single round. No Supercoach or fantasy talk, but it is relevant to every fantasy format. So whether you're a lover of NRL Supercoach, maybe you like your NRL fantasy, you're a game day squad player, or maybe you're even a Sports Deck Dream Team player and you just love your NRL and you want to know what your team's doing ahead of each round, this show's going to be it. Let's get into it.
It's time to strap in and get ready. You're now listening to the Insight NRL show with your hosts, Brain, Metrics, and Whisperer.
G'day guys, welcome to the Insight NRL show. I'm the Supercoach Brain, bringing you all things TLT for round 9. That is Magic Round. We are finally here, and I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to watching some footy. Obviously can't make it this year, sadly, but if you are, have a beer for me. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere, Magic Round, and I'm sure there's going to be some awesome footy on the docket. Now, this show is specifically tailored to all of the ins and outs, all of the news around Team List Tuesday. Obviously, it's only just dropped, so you're going to get, for the most part, my live reaction on what's been happening with team lists. I've had a quick skim, and there are some things to talk about. So definitely very relevant to whatever fantasy teams you're managing throughout the week, or you just want to know what's happening with your team. And every single week, this episode is going to be brought to you by a Game Day Squad. Now, Game Day Squad are the perfect crossover between card collecting and fantasy sport. You can play for free, you can win for free, you can collect, you can trade, you can buy and sell cards, build yourself a squad and compete against your friends in the Game Day Squad community with up to $100,000 in prizes, which is massive. So sign up to Game Day Squad today. You can go to gamedaysquad.com.au or you can go and download the Game Day Squad app. Use the code IFSAUS and score yourself 3 9-player common packs to get things started. All right, let's move into what's happening across Magic Round for round 9 as we'll share our screen on YouTube. For those of you listening on audio, I'll do my best to explain to you as we go. But the Sharks first the Eels in the first game, and we see the ins and outs at the top of the screen here. Unfortunately, the big omission here for a lot of people in the fantasy world is Moeen Hiroti. He obviously moves out. But some positives for the Sharks as they get back Kale Iro in this one. And obviously we see that Kelma Tuolangi is out for the Eels there, sadly. So he is still serving his suspension. So we'll see here. There's not much change in the back line for either team, but thankfully Kale Iro comes back in for the Sharks. Definitely a cheeky little look on whatever you play, whether it's Supercoach or fantasy. I think he's definitely a play in Game Day Squad as well, if that's your flavour. So he's been fantastic this year. We just see the left centre and the left edge at the Sharks getting plenty of ball, which is what we'll talk about in a second. Halves haven't changed, props haven't changed, but you see Billy Burns here. He has still locked down that left edge. We don't see Teague Wilton. It looks like he's going to be missing anywhere between another 1 to 3 weeks with that shoulder injury that he picked up in round 7. So Billy Burns could be definitely a good watch and definitely someone we'll be keeping an eye on. If you're a draft format type person, Billy Burns could be a pretty handy pickup for at least 1 or 2 weeks as a stream. So definitely keep your eye out on him. Their interchange hasn't changed. Braden Hamlin-Uele comes in onto the bench though, which is positive. Obviously quality player, and he'll give him a bit of punch off the bench there, the Sharks. So we still see Tom Hazelton in the 17. The extended bench, nothing really of note here. Good to see Jesse Colquhoun getting a bit of a gig as well. So coming back off that ACL from last season. We see the back line, and for the most part, we see the majority of the lineup not change for the Eels there. We've got Mitchell Moses coming in, playing his second game for the Eels. And we got Charlie Geimer coming back into the lineup, and he starts on the right edge, replacing Kelma Tuolangi. We'll see Kidioni Katoga, also a draft option there in those formats, and someone we'll be looking at. He's been performing really well on the left edge outside Dylan Brown, so we can naturally assume that will continue, and they're running with the same bench. A couple of things to note with the extended bench for the Eels. Ryan Madison and Bryce Cartwright both come onto the extended bench this week, which is interesting. We could see a bit of a shuffle with this bench to finish. Maybe Matt Dory or Sam Tuivasa come off that bench there and are replaced by Bryce Cartwright or Ryan Madison, or potentially both at the 1 hour cut. So definitely something to look at there, but a really good way to kick things off 6 p.m. Friday. No Thursday game this week, sadly. So definitely, you're going to have to scratch the itch for another day. Go and watch some replays or something. We've got the Roosters and the Dolphins with the second game at 8 p.m. on Friday. Roosters essentially are 1-17, which is great for them. They're starting to get a bit of momentum and a bit of consistency now. Billy Smith still in the centres. We see Mark Nwaga-Nitawaze still on the wing there. So Dom Young, he's floating around on the extended bench there along with Chad Townsend. Hugo Savala still locking down that halfback role, which it's good to see him string some games together now. It looks like we'll probably get another 5 games from Savala before Sam Walker returns. And then obviously we've got the question mark on whether Sandon Smith continues to goal kick or whether we see Walker take that back straight away. So something to watch there. Connor Watson in the 9. Naf White still gets the starting prop gig for now. I can't see him losing that anytime soon. Definitely a really good option throughout the bye period as well. As a guy who will be playing all 3 major buys and all 3 minor buys. So someone to definitely be looking at along with the rest of this Roosters team. And then the bench goes unchanged. And as I mentioned there, we've got Townsend and Young in the extended. For the Dolphins, we see Daniel Saifidi come. He drops out of the team, unfortunately. And we also don't see Max Plath in this lineup at all. So, yeah, a big blow for the Dolphins there. He's still not right to go. But the good thing is they get Felice Kafusi and Jeremy Marshall-King along with Kurt Donahue back in the team. So some big ins there for the Finns to be able to compete with this Roosters lineup. As we see, as we go through the team here, Felice Kafusi takes his spot in the prop rotation with Francis Molo. We see Tom Gilbert still on an edge there, but Mark Nichols locking down the scrum in the 13, replacing Max Plath. Off the bench, we've got Kurt Donahue. He comes back onto the bench after missing last week. Ray Stone's still there. Connolly Lemuelu's been fantastic this year, along with Josh Kerr. So that is what we see for the Dolphins and for game 2. Plenty of movement there. If you're a Max Plath owner, I think I'd probably hold tight. He should be 1 to 2 weeks away. So definitely worth being patient, I think, with him if you made your bet in that scenario. Now, game 3, Saturday, first game, 3 p.m. We've got the Rabbitohs and the Knights. Now, obviously, the Rabbitohs have been hit with a suspension here. Latrell Mitchell, he misses 1 week through suspension last week with his hit on Farlongo for the Storm. So we also see Josh Schuster come onto the bench. We see Lachlan Hubner come back in after his HIA. And obviously, Fletcher Myers coming back in on the extended bench there too. We see Bailey Bentley-Hape keep his spot on the wing. I think he's been pretty good for what he's been asked to do. Ewan Aitken back into the centres is an interesting move because we see Jack Whiten named in the 6. Now, originally, we were looking at there potentially being a chance that Lewis Dodd would get his first start in the 7 jersey with Sullivan playing the 6, but they've opted to go with Whiten and move Aitken to centre. So, interesting move by Wayne Bennett. Let's see if it pays off. Then we've obviously got the same movement here. We've got Tallis Duncan starting on an edge this week. I'm interested to see whether that actually stays that way or whether Wayne does an old flip at 1 hour. Jai Arrow also in the 13 jersey where we see Lachlan Hubner off the bench. So, yeah, I mean, we could see a Lachlan Hubner trade out in a couple of different scenarios this week. So definitely worth watching the 24-hour cuts at 3 p.m. on Friday before game 1 and keeping an eye on what Lachlan Hubner's doing and whether he does come back in and start. I think he's probably worth a hold if he's starting. But if he's coming off the bench, I'm not overly keen. Knowing that these guys, Keon, Tallis Duncan, Jai Arrow are all big minute forwards, I can't see any more than 50 minutes for Hubner, which is probably a concern for me. We see Davey Muali and then Fletcher Myers. Interesting to see him in the 17 jersey there. So they're looking at a bit of back row cover there if they want to make a late switch, which I probably think is going to happen. Lewis Dodd off the bench, off the extended bench, I should say, as well as Josh Schuster. There is rumour that Josh Schuster could be coming onto the bench for his first start for 2025 as well. So keep a very close eye on a lot of movement I can predict before the game, probably at the 1 hour cuts. Now, for the Knights, we see Adam Elliott and Jacob Saifidi come back into the team along with Tyson Gamble, but we have persisted with Jack Cogger in the 7 jersey for now. So, good signs for Cogger. Interesting to see whether Gamble can work his way back into this Knights team. Jacob Saifidi back into the prop rotation. Phoenix Crossland starting at 9 over Jaden Brayley. And we see, obviously, Dylan Lucas back into this team. Tyson Frizzell moving from the prop rotation into the 13 jersey, as we know that was his intended role in 2025 before injuries struck with the guys like Thompson and Saifidi over the last month. Jaden Brayley in the 14. Again, every chance we might see a late switch. We see Jaden Brayley start and Crossland to the bench like last week. Adam Elliott, Matt Croker moves to the bench as well, sadly, and then Brodie Jones, who's done a pretty good job over the last couple of weeks. Thomas Cant is the big omission here. He is on the extended bench in the 18 jersey, so not ideal for anybody who went on him. His cash gen will seem to have dried up now in pretty much every format, so you can definitely look to move him on. And Tyson Gamble in the 19 jersey. So a very close watch there on whether we can see Gamble make his way back into this team in the 7 jersey at the late switch, but we'll see what Adam O'Brien wants to do in this one. Let's move on to the next game. That's the 4th game of the week. We've got Saturday, 5:30. We've got the Wires up against the Cowboys. Both teams in form, both teams playing awesome football, and the Cowboys still don't have to move out of Queensland yet, which is great for them. We see here the only real out of note is Jacob Laban. He drops out of the Wires team, but for the most part, we see Chance at the back. We see the same back line that the Warriors have put up. We see Chanel Harris-Tavita in the 6, Metcalf in the 7. So not much is changing here. We see Nia Corey move into the prop rotation, which, we've seen him on an edge a bit this year. So definitely, I do like him in the middle, to be honest. So I think this is a good move for them while James Fisher-Harris is still sidelined. Kurt Capewell on an edge, but the big news here is Leka Halasima holds down the starting edge role, which is incredibly exciting. Obviously we'll have to see what happens when James Fisher-Harris comes back into this team, but very, very good signs. And I'll tell you what, this guy is a seriously talented footballer. So I'm incredibly excited to see him get started minutes potentially. He only did play, I think it was 49 last week. So definitely on minutes watch for me and a serious option in most formats, whether it's fantasy, Supercoach, game day squad, etc. Tamari Martin still on the bench here in the 14 jersey. Jackson Ford drops back into the interchange in the 15. Bunty Afoa there rounding out the bench with not really much to note here in the extendeds. Now, the Cowboys, they don't really have any changes to their 17. They're 1-17. We've got Stott Drinkwater at the back, still with the goal kicking by the looks of things. Tom Dearden in the 6 was electric last week and probably putting his hand up for a Queensland gig at this point if he can keep this kind of form up. Jake Clifford in the 7. Then we don't see any change to the back row here. Nanai getting the start with Bateman. So anybody looking at Jeremiah Nanai as an option, definitely putting his hand up after his big score last week and his awesome performance. Sammy McIntyre in the 14. And yeah, for the most part, the bench is unchanged. The extended bench looking very similar to weeks gone by. So not too much changes here with the Warriors and the Cowboys, but it's great to see Leka Halasima get his start again for the Warriors. Let's move into the Tigers and Dragons. And from what I've seen, there has been some shuffling around and a couple of omissions. So very interesting one here. The back row still looks the same for the Tigers. The back line, I should say. Galvin holding his spot over Luai. Sadly, no sight yet of Latu Fainu. So very interesting to see what happens with him when he is available to play coming back from that finger injury. For the most part, Alex Twal still locking the scrum, TDS off the bench. The bench looks exactly the same. And then we look at the extended bench there. Nothing of note, Heath Mason in the 19 jersey. But it looks like the Tigers are going to be running 1-17 off the back of their win last week. Very positive. Now, we do see Corey Allen come in on the wing for the Dragons over Sione for now. And that's a very interesting one for fantasy and Supercoach players because he was definitely a guy that people were looking at this week. So Corey Allen winning the spot on the wing and don't get me wrong, love Corey Allen, big Corey Allen guy. So we see Kyle Flanagan come in. He's still named in the 6, but I think there's every chance he'll be moving to the 7 by all reports. And Lycan King Togia, he wins the halves role. We see Lachlan Ilias dropped. So, big moves being made here by the Dragons. I would expect King Togia to be in the 5'8 jersey or in the 5'8 role, I should say, on the left, and Kyle Flanagan will likely be steering the team around the park. When we look at kicking in play, neither of these guys have really been big kickers in play. King Togia in New South Wales Cup this year, whilst he's been electric with ball in hand, 9 try assists, 10 line break assists. He's not a kicker of the ball. He averages 55 kick meters per game. So Kyle Flanagan going to have to get his boot on, I think, in this one and do all of the in-play kicking, which will be interesting because it doesn't look like they've got a big boot in this team. So they'll have to get field position against the Tigers. Toby Couchman in the prop rotation, as always. He's been fantastic this year. Bit of a quieter game last year, so I'm sure he'll be coming back with a bang. Dylan Egan named to start. No silly buggers here from Shane Flanagan pre-game. So TLT, we see him in the 11 jersey from day one, which is great. And Hamish Stewart, for anybody who's still holding Hamish Stewart, he is in the 13 jersey locking the scrum for the Dragons. Very interesting to see that. And we see Jack DeBellin move back to the bench. Now, I'm not 100% sure it's going to stay this way, but yeah, definitely a very close watch. At the hour cut, we see Luciano Leilua and Emre Gula rounding out the bench there. So yeah, it could be a little bit of late movement, but we'll see. Definitely very good for Supercoach and Fantasy. We see Lachlan Ilias still in the extended bench, but yeah, by all reports has been dropped from this team, sadly. So let's see how the youngster goes in the 7 or in the 6 role this week. Titans and Bulldogs got the next one. So this honestly could be a very one-sided affair. I would say that the Bulldogs are going to be looking for a bounce back, but they are missing some troops this week. We'll touch on the Titans first. Now, the Titans have a few ins here. We've got Cleese Haas coming back in. We've got Isaac Fa'asor-Malaawi coming back into the team, but they do lose Brock Gray, and Jamin Jolliffe is out due to suspension. Jalen de Groot's still at the back, so they're stringing some games together for him. We still haven't seen AJ Brimson, but we also don't see Kieran Foran for the Titans in this one. Jojo Fafita still on the wing there. Tom Weaver holding down the 7 role. And we do see Chris Randall in the edge position to start again. And the one thing we will note from this bench is that there is no David Fafita this week. He is on the extended bench in the 19 jersey. So whether he's gone and aggravated that injury from last week and maybe they've brought him back too soon, I reckon there's every chance of that unfortunately happening. So yeah, definitely terrible for owners of David Fafita if you have him in fantasy, but even worse for the Titans because you can't afford to be missing arguably one of your best players on the park this often and this early throughout the season. We see Isaac and Cleese Haas coming back onto the bench there. So for the most part, couple of moving parts, but yeah, no David Fafita is huge for the Titans. The Bulldogs obviously missing 3 players due to their suspension fest last week. Josh Curran will miss 3 weeks. Matt Burton misses just this week, and Satili Tupanu will be missing 5 weeks of footy. So a bit of movement here, and we'll see some changes in that back row to facilitate that, and definitely changes to their bench, and probably a couple of players I'll be looking at moving forward. Bailey Hayward is the replacement number 6 for Matt Burton this week. Definitely a stream and draft format, so I'd be looking at Bailey Hayward as a 1-week play if you're looking for someone that was playable at 5'8", or in the 2RF if you're a Supercoach player. We also see Daniel Saluka Fafita bring a bit of size back to this pack for the Bulldogs. They've been getting bullied a little bit up the middle, so it'll be definitely very positive as they'll be coming up a very big pack in Mo Fodawaker, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Tino. Those 3 guys have some size about them, so they're going to need Max King and Daniel Saluka Fafita to bring a bit of size to this Broncos pack. Kickout and Preston on the edges, Jamin Salmon there locking the scrum. And then we do see here Curtis Morin, Blake Taff, Kurt Mann, and Harry Hayes, who I'm incredibly excited to see Harry Hayes hopefully get a few more minutes with the injury, with the suspension, to Tupanua. So from what we're seeing, Harry Hayes in past games has averaged around that 40-minute mark. He played 52 last week. I'm predicting there's every chance we could see 60 plus from Harry Hayes this week. So very excited to watch him. Blake Taff on the bench with Kurt Mann makes them really thin in the middle, doesn't it? So for me, I'm probably seeing that there might be a little bit of a late change there with maybe Hopboy coming into this or onto this bench, I'd say, at the expense of Blake Taff. So that is the Titans and the Bulldogs. The Titans are going to have to play some incredible footy to keep them out here. Penrith and the Broncos. This could be an absolute banger of a game. Broncos getting a genuine away game at Suncorp Stadium always makes me laugh. Brad Schneider, the only out here. It looks like both teams are running 1-17 for the most part, minus there is obviously Luke Garner coming back into the team for the Penrith Panthers with Scott Sorensen being named, but also he's looking to downgrade his charge from last week at the judiciary. So that will happen tonight. If he is successful in downgrading his charge, he will suit up for this game against the Broncos at Magic Round. But sadly, if he does get proven guilty, then he will miss 3 games. So a big move there from Scott Sorensen and the Panthers. Now, we see Isaac Tungo still in the centres. Luke Garner, the other centre here, as we see Casey McLean there, also drop out of the starting lineup. Blaze Talangi holding on to his role. Luke Summerton still in the 9 jersey. We see Mitch Kenny missing another game or 2 here. Liam Henry still starting at prop. And when we look at the bench there, Trent Tolau comes onto the bench in the 14. So we'll see what kind of role they have in plan for him. I would assume that we'll naturally see with Brent Schneider out of the team, we'll see Tolau probably play a very similar role to what Schneider has in the past couple of weeks. Isaiah Papali'i, Lindsay Smith and Maverick Guy, they're rounding out the bench. Extended bench, we see Casey McLean. So yeah, but a big move there to punt Casey McLean in favour of Luke Garner. So, very interesting. Probably to manage the size of Katoni Staggs, I would assume. Selwyn Cobbo still at the back for the Broncos. And then for the most part, we don't see any other changes. Xavier Willison's the big one I'm watching. He gets a start for the third time, which means for those of you that play Supercoach, he will get the 2RF duel if he does end up starting. He'll get the 2RF duel by round 12. So incredibly exciting for you Supercoach players out there. But for fantasy players, he already is a edge middle. So, Xavier Willison, definitely a buy candidate this week. We'll be talking about him a lot more on the official show on Wednesday night for the Insight NRL show now. Corey Pake's still on the bench there. Corey Jensen, Pia Kura still on the bench, and Jaden Hunt. So they've got a couple of edges there. Jordan Ricky coming back into the team as well for the Broncos. So some positive signs for the Bronx against the Panthers, and what I'm sure that will be an absolute banger of a game there in the second last game of the week. And we've got the Storm and the Raiders to round out Magic Round. We don't see any changes here for the Storms. Suat Farlongo was out with concussion, so he must be looking to appeal that decision. So we'll see what the outcome of that is. Grant Anderson still staying at centre. Nick Meaney there. Word is Pappenhausen will be retaining the goal kicking, so keep an eye out on that in the pre-game, but all reports are that Pappy will keep the kicking for now. We see Bronson Garlick in the 9 jersey, still Harry Grant, couple of weeks away, so worth keeping an eye out on where he is at week to week. Tyron Wishart in the 14 jersey rounds things out there, and Joe Chan in the 17. Kane Bradley was rumoured to be coming in on the wing, so that's one to watch. He's in the extended bench as well. So if we do see, obviously, Suafar Longo unfortunately end up failing this appeal for his HIA, then we'll see Kane Bradley come onto the wing. Kyle Weeks at fullback. We don't see any changes to the Raiders. They've gone true 1 to 17. Absolutely no movement at all. Zach Hoskin coming off the bench in the middle role now. We've seen week on week, 2 weeks in a row when we were concerned about Matty Nicholson's minutes, that he has played 80 minutes back to back. So still definitely a hold moving forward. And Josh Papali'i there and Ata Mariota off the bench, and no movement on the extended bench. So guys, that is the TLT, I guess the TLT, official TLT episode for Insight Fantasy Sports. We'll be doing this every single week. And if you do have any feedback on how you'd like this delivered, or if you don't like it and you want us to go back to the way we're doing things, we're always open to feedback. So please let us know. Otherwise, guys, we'll be bringing you this around that 4:35 p.m. every single Tuesday. What it does allow us to do is not only give you a specific ins and outs show so that we don't have to fluff about a lot on the Wednesday night show, it does free up the Wednesday night Supercoach show officially to, talk a lot more relevant hot topics on there rather than having to talk about all the ins and outs. So hopefully you like it. Guys, let us know how you feel about it, and let us know what you feel about the big ins and outs this week. There is a fair bit of movement and a lot to be excited about heading into Magic Round. If you're going there, enjoy, travel safe, have a beer for me, and enjoy the footy. See you tomorrow.